Hello and welcome to our session today. On behalf of the Pueschel School of Leadership and Public Service, I'd like to welcome you to You're Not the Boss of Me, Relationship Management at Work. Let's go ahead and get started. So when we think about our session today, after our session today, you'll be able to, one, determine your brand. We'll also define your role and your leadership style. Finally, we'll discover best practices for relationship management. Now, when you see the green pencil, you'll know that that is your cue to pause the session and write down your reflection. You have a workbook that you've been emailed, and so you can go ahead and use that to help you guide you through the process. Now, today's session will take about an hour, but that's with the pauses. So pause as long as you need, and we'll go ahead and get started. Now, our agenda will start with our introduction. We'll then have our session overview. We'll talk about brand and roles and styles. We'll talk about best practices, and then we'll wrap it up and conclude. So let's start with our introduction. First of all, I'm Dr. Andrew Pueschel. I'm an assistant professor of marketing at the Ohio University College of Business. My PhD is in leadership and instructional management from Robert Morris University, and my undergraduate and graduate degrees are in public policy and management from Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. So a little bit more about what I do in terms of my research. I study wellness, I study organizations, and I study how the workplace is helping us when we are able to actually make it a more healthy environment for ourselves. That's not only in our relationships, but also organization culture and leadership development as well. Personally, I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a big fan of Disney, and down at the bottom, that's my dog Cosmo. He's 15 years old, and he's my partner in crime. Enough about me. Let's go ahead and dive right into our session. So first of all, I want to set some ground rules for the culture for our session. Everything today is completely voluntary. At any time, you can stop the process. And I want to make sure that you're going into this with trusting yourself as giving yourself the room and the permission to reflect and to make mistakes and bring up those things that maybe you've done in the past that you haven't thought about in a while. I want you to be transparent and honest with yourself. I want you to think about what has happened and how you can move forward. And then note that at any time, if you need support, make sure that you're able to have your support systems available to you and that you can use the information to help others in the future. So, your individual journey. We all have our own individual journeys to success. We all have shared experiences and individual experiences that throughout our lifetime has allowed us to become the person that we're at. So whether you're at the top of your ladder or getting ready to start your climb up, we have to make sure that you pay attention to what's happening all around us. This includes the impact of our success that we have on others and on our organization. So if you look at work and non-work, in the past, we absolutely kept them separate. Now, recently, they've started to merge together. And as recent as now, they're just intertwined. There's this concept of we can't tell the difference between our work life and our home life, whether it's family, exercise, diet, home, work, coworkers, hobbies, health, friends, whatever it is, everything is blurred together. But we need to think about how that is impacting our lives and impacting our relationships in and out of the workplace. So here's our first stop for reflection. I want you to think about your current status. Have you recently been promoted within your organization? Has a friend of yours been promoted over you? How does your current status make you feel? How did it make others feel? And what challenges are currently in the way of your success? So many times, we have our experiences in our organizations and we work really hard, but there might be someone that passes us up for a promotion, or if we get promoted, and it affects our work environment, and it affects those that are stakeholders, and sometimes those stakeholders are our friends. So I want you to reflect on that. And if it hasn't happened to you, maybe it's happened to someone you know. What's happened to them? How did it affect them? How did it affect others? So go ahead and pause the presentation, finish the reflection, and when you're done, unpause and we'll continue. Okay, so now that you've had your first reflection done, I want to make sure that you know about the good news. Relationship management can be learned. The skills can be practiced over time, and you grow through your life experiences in terms of relationship management and development. So all these things are things that can be better even by the time we're done with our session today. Now, the first step is to determine your brand. And this is our first activity. I want to think about perception versus reality. Now, perception is a way of understanding and interpreting something, your first impression, a mental impression of what you're thinking. So I want you to think about what's your perception of me? The way I look, the way I speak, the way I act, the way I interact with you. What is your perception? Now, you'll see the green pencil down there. So I'll give you a second to reflect and write these down. And then we're going to talk about what's next. Okay, welcome back. So now reality, the state or quality of being real. I want you to think about what you wrote down in terms of your perceptions of me, but then I want you to think about, does it match with what I think about myself and what I think that I put out there in terms of my impression for you? So when I think about myself, I want to be energetic, I want to be positive, I want to be confident, and I want to be professional. So I'm hoping and knowledgeable. I'm hoping that you wrote some of those things, even items like accepting and welcoming, inclusive, maybe high energy. So hopefully those things, some of those have matched. And if they don't match, then it's up to me to make sure that in the future, I can gain that information and then change what I need to do about myself so it matches the reality that you see, which actually is your first impression, which is your perception of me. We want to make sure that perception and reality eventually match. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're just going to discover our brand. So we're going to decide what your brand is. So what is a brand? Well, it's not just a logo. In the image there, you'll see Coca-Cola and McDonald's and IBM and Starbucks and other corporations, but it's more than that. It's something that enhances the perceived value of an organization beyond the functional purpose. It gives a visual aspect to it. So it can also be a promise of specific benefits, attributes, or value that's distinctive and individual and versus your competitors, what sets you apart. It's also the one thing that your audience sees that says what you stand for. So it's that recognition. Once you see those golden arches, you know exactly what you're going to get. Now, a strong brand does the following. It makes money. Absolutely. When we see that strong brand, we recognize the quality, and if we want to spend our money on it, we're going to go and do that. It also attracts and energizes. So hopefully if you see my picture or my name in the future, you'll once again tie back to positivity, energy, things like that, professionalism. Now, it empowers people to become advocates. Once I spend money on an organization, once it starts to attract me and energize me, I then want to talk about that company. And it protects me from crisis and competition. If my brand is strong enough, it's going to stand up to negative things that happen in the media, especially over time. Now, things are going to go wrong, but if my brand is strong, I can overcome them. So think about it. When you think about Apple, what does that mean to you? Does it mean technology? Does it mean innovation? Does it mean expensive? What does that mean? Now, if you can't define who you are, what makes you different, how will your peers do this? Now, this is a huge challenge. So Jeff Bezos, personal brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. Now, you can say that's gossipy, you can say that's talking behind someone's back, but that's what people are going to remember. So I want you to think about that. Personal brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. Now, it's really critical that if you don't make your brand and put it out there and execute it, someone else is going to do it, and most likely it's going to be wrong. It's not going to be what you want. So we're going to talk about that today, is how do we discover our brand? Now, how you see yourself and how others see you, when you merge those together in your diagram and in the middle, that's your personal brand. We want that to be in alignment. So the benefits of a strong brand are the 7. People trust you. You have a higher perceived value when they know what you stand for. They know how you differentiate from the competition. You're always going to be 100% authentic when you can build your brand and you can live that and be that version of your brand in front of that person. Now, here's the thing. Your brand might be different for different individuals and different stakeholders, but that's okay. But you need to be aware of that and make sure that you are remembering that. What your brand is on Sunday morning might be your different brand than on Friday night. So just be aware. Now, a benefit of strong brand also makes you the go-to person for your areas of expertise. So also be careful. If you're going to become the expert on organizational culture, make sure you live up to that, because people are going to start to remember that and come to you for your advice. This is going to make you an expert in your field. It's going to strengthen your brand and get you acknowledged. And it's going to attract these opportunities that are going to help you to not only think about those things that the brand does, make money, energize people, get people to follow you. All these things go in tandem with each other, and they follow up and they build as we go. So I want you to reflect. I want you to pause after this. The 7 benefits are on the side there, but I want you to pick one of the 7 benefits to the strong brand. I want you to think about the impact that focusing on that benefit could have on your success, and I want you to write your thoughts down. So for instance, the sixth bullet is you are known as an expert in your field. If this is what I want to focus my energy on, what does that mean for me? What is that going to do to my reputation? So as an expert on organizational culture, I know that when media calls or someone has some research they want to dive into and they need a partner for organizational culture, they're going to come to me about it. Now, I have to be ready for that, and it might get me publications, it might get me notoriety, it also might get me more work to do and increased relationships that I have to be accountable for. So once again, pick one of the 7 benefits that you want to focus on. Think about the impact that it could have on you, negative and positive, and then reflect on that. Go ahead and pause, and when you're done, we'll continue. Let's move on to our second activity, measuring your brand. So you're going to measure your personal brand and your professional brand. Now, in this instance, your personal brand differentiates you from others. So when you go through these 10 steps here, you're going to say from 1, strongly agree, to 5, strongly disagree, how you relate to these things. So the first one says, your best friends could easily state 3 things that make you stand out. Do you agree with that strongly? Do you somewhat agree with it? Neither agree, somewhat disagree, or strongly disagree. Now at the bottom, you'll see you'll total your score. A score below 20, you have a healthy brand. If you score 20 to 30, you need to refocus your brand. If you score 40 to 50, your brand is confusing. So remember, the higher the score, the lower our brand. So go ahead, take a minute and fill that personal brand out. Now remember, our brand is how people see, how we see ourselves and how others see you. And in the middle, when those hybrid together, you're going to have your personal brand. Now I want you to think about your business brand, your professional brand. Same questions, but when we think about this, it'll be your instructors or boss could easily state 3 things about you. We're going to take the business approach. So I want you to think about how you're different in the business world than you are in your personal life. Once again, you'll score and you'll see what the score is. Go ahead and take a minute and do that. Now, once you're done with both of those scoring, look at the totals for both of them. Did you have a stronger personal or professional brand? Why do you think one brand is stronger than the other, and why? And what impact do you have? What impact do you think having one brand stronger than the other might have on your leadership journey and future managerial implications? So for instance, if my personal brand is stronger than that of my professional brand, I might be spending too much time on relationships at home if I want to have a better brand at work. So maybe I want to transfer some of my time. Maybe I want to make sure to increase my network. Maybe I want to spend more time with individuals. I want to get my name out there more or be more productive. Or maybe it's the opposite direction. Maybe my brand is stronger at work and I'm realizing that I'm neglecting some things at home. So I really want you to think about this and what impact will this have on your future success? I'll pause while you finish the reflection. Okay, now remember, the good news, relationship management can be learned. The skills can be practiced. We're doing them right now. And it can grow over time through your life experience. Let's continue with defining your roles and styles. So when we define leadership, being a leader is not what we all think it is. It is a social process which an individual intentionally exerts influence to structure behaviors and/or relationships. Let me say that again. You're intentionally exerting your influence to have impact on behaviors and/or relationships. Now, what it's not is it's not just being the manager or a supervisor or a boss. It's not just having a title, and it's not just having the corner office or a particular status, and it's also not having significant information. These are things that might give you, more importance in the workplace, but it doesn't mean you're being a leader. Here's the thing. Everyone can be a leader, regardless of your job, regardless of your status, regardless of where you are in the org chart. Everyone has the opportunity to be a leader. Should everyone be leading at all times? Absolutely. When we have intentionally exerted our influence over a process, a person, any kind of innovation, then we're taking the leadership action. So the first thing you need to do is you need to think about what are you going to do? What is the role you're taking? Are you going to be leading? Do you have a clear vision in mind of what should be happening? Are you able to inspire others to follow that vision? Because remember, you can't be a leader if you don't have any followers. And then managing. Are you considering the individual person in mind? Managing, we focus on individuals. We set goals with milestones and check-ins, and we check in and we make sure that we're celebrating with that person once they reach their goals. And then coaching. Are we helping others to get where they need to go along the process? And are we allowing them to develop in their own path as they go? Pros and cons to all three, but you need to decide in which projects are you doing what. Now, that sounds simple enough. I'm just going to pick leading for all of them, but we can't do that. It's specific to what our overall goals are for the organization, teams, and individuals. Now let's add some complexity to that, and let's talk about leadership styles. So here we have transactional versus transformational leadership. So transactional leadership, Max Weber in 1947 and Bernie Bass in 1981. We talk about different kinds of management approaches, controlling, organizing, short-term planning. When things are transactional, you are paying someone and you're getting something back. So there's an exchange. You have control. When the job is finished, it's done. The transaction has been completed. Now, when you think about transformational leadership, and this is Burns in 1947, managing through inspiration, inspiring others to grow through the process. You're optimizing performance and you're changing the person over time. So do you have the energy to engage with the person? Are you going to motivate them through inspiration, empower them to be their best? And are they going to be a changed person from the time they begin to the end of the process? You need to decide what resources do you have, what energy do you have, and how can you make it work? Now, also, what about an ethical leader? So do you have what it takes to be an ethical leader? So it begins with the top, trickles down. You have achieving by example. You're going to talk about the common good, employees, stakeholders, and investors, and the impact that's going to have on individuals, organizations, and the community. Now, when you do this, ethical leaders have to live through the mission and the vision of the organization. They need to walk the walk, talk the talk, and think about the principles that are wanting to be communicated to. You want to think about how you are going to think of your personal traits and your professional conduct. They need to be in alignment. There's no room for different types of ethical leadership within the same organization, within the same project. Once you commit to that, you need to stay true to it until you reach your end goal resort. Now, in terms of authentic leadership, this is being genuine to who we are as a person. Now, this doesn't mean if people say, well, I am who I am, and this is how I am in every situation. So the thing is that we can be authentic in different situations. Once again, authentically who you are on a Friday night with your friends might be authentically different than who you are on Sunday when you take your grandmother to church. But when we're an authentic leader, we lead with our own values in our heart. We think about the purpose. We think about self-discipline by being consistent throughout the entire process. We think about being compassionate with other stakeholders. And we think about the relationships that we're building. So I want you to think about that. What type of leadership style are you going to use moving forward? When you think about the relationships, especially when it comes to you getting a promotion or someone else getting a promotion over you, how are you going to manage these relationships? Now, remember, leading, managing, and coaching, these different roles that you're going to take are different when they're individuals, when it's someone that you're reporting to, and also with difficult conversations, and in the team setting. But when we think about which role are we going to take, and we think about how are we going to lead within that role, then things become clear. So, reflection. I want you to think about a specific situation in which leading would be the best for you to achieve. So, why is leading the best path to take for it? What style of leadership? Over on the right, you see transformational, transactional, ethical, and authentic. Why would you choose one of those? And then what positive impact might occur throughout this process? Go ahead and reflect on that. Make it specific to something you're dealing with right now, and maybe it's an issue that you might be having in the workplace. And see, by going through this process, identifying the type of leadership or the type of role that you want to portray in this, and see what impact. Now, if you need to go back and look at the details for transformational, transactional, ethical, and authentic, that's fine. Go ahead and go back. And when you're done, come back and we'll continue. Let's move on to best practices to relationship management. Now, once again, when we think about it on the right-hand side, we have trust, transparency, and support. When we have these best practices for relationship management, remember we're thinking about with promotions in mind. Remember the title of this session is You're Not the Boss of Me. So when you think about this and someone gets promoted over you or you get promoted, it changes the dynamic of the relationship. But we spent a lot of time on discovering our brand, talking about the roles that we're going to play. But now I want to talk about those tactile best practices that are going to help us maximize our success in the workplace when we think about increasing trust, transparency, and support over all stakeholders. So, in order to best manage our work relationships, the first thing you're going to do is discuss your brand with your peers and employees. I want you to think about, and I want you to ask those questions. What is your perception of me? And then have discussions about what you want that reality to look like and what it's going to take to get from point A to point C, noting that B all the way through could be a very large window of time and a lot of milestones to get to where you want to go in terms of making your brand or perception a reality in the eyes of those that you work with and that work for you. Next one is what we just discovered. Determine the best leadership style and role that you can play for the situation at hand. So when a situation comes up and I think, you know what? I'm about to go into this discussion with my colleague, Greg, and I think I need to, I know Greg really well. I really think that coaching is going to be the best thing for him moving into this new role or position. I really want to make sure I set up milestones. I want to be able to give transformational leadership direction so he develops along the pathway instead of, you know what? All I need Greg to do is file these papers alphabetically by last name. I'm going to give him those 2 rules. The transactions are going to be done. I'm going to give him some time. I'm going to give him 45 minutes to do it, and it's done. And maybe I'll take him to lunch afterwards when he succeeds. So I really want you to think about what's needed for that specific time in your organization. Now, with all that said, you need to understand that when you become the boss of someone, or if someone becomes the boss of you, and you've been friends with them, no matter if it's been 6 months or 5 years or 5 decades, decisions are going to be difficult. Things are going to have to be dealt with. You're going to need to separate your friend time from the employee role. Absolutely. You're going to need to take the professional route, at least in the workplace. Now, whether this means limiting some of your time, how you talk to each other, even any and all communications, verbal or written, you need to take the professional route because people are going to be documenting. Now, also know that everyone you manage reflects your leadership potential and style and your reputation. So even if you've been friends with someone for 20 years, once you become their boss, everything that they do, whether it's positive or negative, is going to reflect on you and vice versa. Also remember that managing others takes up time. It takes up a lot of time, and everyone's going to be different. So there's going to be people that you have to hold their hands to make things happen. Some people are autonomous. It's up to you to get to know them in the process, and knowing someone in the past or knowing them personally might not be how they act professionally. You need to know both sides of them. Remember that leadership comes with time. You're new to this new role, or they're new to this role, and it's going to take some time to work out the negativity to get to a positive place. And then once again, make sure that you're focusing that shift to the bigger picture. You have been put in a leadership role. You need to think of what is happening on the big picture, a strategic lens, so you can see where your relationships, whether good, bad, or indifferent, whether they are gaining in importance to you or waning, whatever it is, how does it impact the bigger picture of the organization? And most importantly, this is all an opportunity for you to grow and change through the process. Change is difficult, change is hard, change is not easy, but you can be better through the process if you understand that you're going to have to act differently. Now, let's continue. When we think about overall best practices, it's a long journey ahead. There's going to be some strengths and heavy lifting, but at the end, the review is going to be amazing and your experience is going to be worth it. So, if you get promoted over a friend, know that your relationship absolutely has changed. Hopefully for the better. You're going to have to act in different ways. You're going to have to talk through what the future is going to look and feel like. And you're going to say, you know what, Adam, our relationship has changed. Even though you're reporting to me, know that we're still friends. We're going to hang out on the weekend, but from 9 to 5 or whatever it is, here's what I'm going to need to do, and here's what I'm going to need from you. You're going to need to discuss boundaries. You're going to need to think about, once again, what are the hours in which you're going to be professional versus personal, and you're going to make sure you're going to set up those boundaries. You know what, we're not going to talk about what happened this weekend once we get into the office. Once we leave the office, that's fine. We're not going to share these things with other coworkers. We're really going to set those boundaries. Maybe it's even just how you talk to each other. If you were, maybe if you talked in slangs, or maybe there was derogatories or whatever it is. Moving forward, you're going to have to change that language and make sure that it's clear for both parties. Now, with that, and when we talk about language, use your words carefully when you get the job. You want to think about, remember, what is the perception, not only of your friend, but the others, everyone, the stakeholders in your office. What you say matters. So avoid gloating. You don't want to talk about money. You don't want to talk about exerting the power or putting the person down, because maybe you both applied for a position and you got it over this person. You wouldn't want that person to talk to you in that way. And so make sure that you are talking in supportive language. Now, another rule is maybe take some time away and you say, you know what, Adam, I just got this new promotion. I know this might be difficult for you because I know you also applied for this. Why don't we, we usually talk every day. Why don't we just take the next week and, I'll see you, next Monday. Let's take some time away from each other. If you need me, absolutely. But, I know this is a difficult transition, so we might need that time away. During this time, you want to make sure that all your expectations are clearly defined. Are you going to discuss them and documented moving forward? So you know what? Thank you so much for agreeing to take the time away. This is our first meeting in our new roles. I've put together a document that explains everything that I think we need to do moving forward to make sure our working relationship is strong. Do you agree with this? Yes or no? What changes would you like to make? Now, also think about things that are on a need-to-know basis. When we're friends with people, we like to talk. We like to tell them everything that's going on in the office or everything in our life. When you get promoted over someone, or if you're in a power position or a leadership position, things change from learning everything about the person to going to a need-to-know basis. When we're in leadership positions, you have access and a privilege to more information than the usual public. Make sure that you are respecting confidentiality. Make sure that you're thinking about what is important to the organization and what am I allowed to share. You might even have to adjust your personal schedule to make room for this new role, especially if you're going into a leadership position where you have people underneath you, and also you're still reporting to people above you. You're going to be going into new and different meetings. You're going to need to plan for those meetings and prepare. You're going to have to depend on others to prepare information as well. So make sure to add in that filler time, the time before and after, even travel time, to adjust to your schedule. Also, limit those lunches, water cooler chatter, and even the happy hour that you might have been used to with your friend group, and now they're your employees. Make sure that what you're doing is appropriate, and even if it was something that was a regularly scheduled thing, things might change and you need to adjust for that. Now, above all else, you need to do your job to the best of your ability. The people that hired you, the people that promoted you, saw something in you that made them want to lift you and elevate you above the rest. Make sure that you're living up to that. Make sure to reconnect with those that hired you, see what they saw in you in terms of their strengths, because remember, that goes back to your brand. That's their perception of your reality. You want to make sure that you're living up to that as well, because you don't know where your success is going to lead you in the future. So at the beginning of the session, I asked you to think about something happening that was currently going on in your life. Maybe you got promoted over someone, or a friend got promoted over you. Thinking back to our brand, thinking about to leadership roles and styles and our best practices, how do you feel now that you have some resources to help you manage your relationships? And what positive impact do you think applying these resources will have on your future success? Go ahead, take a few minutes on reflecting those, and then go back and look at your original reflection on your current status and see if anything has changed throughout the process of today. So welcome back. We're almost done with our session. So now you can determine your brand. You can define your roles, and you can define the leadership styles that you're going to use for certain situations. And you've discovered best practices to relationship management. All the things that we talked about today can be utilized in the workplace. You can utilize the brand test for your employees. So that's a great icebreaker. It's also a great professional development plan. Also, you can think about the roles and leadership styles, and you can talk to individuals and teams, and you can strategize for the year based on your observations and your projects coming up. What type of leader or what type of role should we play for what's happening and coming up in the future? And then best practices. Please feel free to share these. Go through, and when you see others being promoted or people thinking about going into promotions, or you're looking to hire someone, talk through these best practices and let them be prepared for what's going to happen, because change is going to happen to them, and we want to make it personal, professional, and positive moving forward. So remember, relationship management can be learned. Relationship management skills can be practiced. They can grow over time through life experience, and you are the one that can be aware and take the steps to maximize your success moving forward. I want to thank you for your time. I want you to have an amazing day. If you need to contact me, my email is there for you. And on behalf of the Pueschel School for Leadership and Public Service at Ohio University, I want to thank you for our session on You're Not the Boss of Me, Managing Relationships at Work. And my last slide for you is my resources. I always want to make sure that you know where I'm getting my information, and if you'd like to read the full articles, they're there for you. I hope you had an amazing day, and I look forward to hearing about all the impact that you're going to make on your own professional development and those in your organization. Have a great day. Thank you.